Hi, I'm Jacqueline from Valiantys, and I'm part of the Strategic Projects team. I want to talk to you today about strategic portfolio management. This is just going to be a brief introduction to a very complex problem, but hopefully, if you are interested in setting up a portfolio management system at your company, this will help you get started. So today, we're going to be talking about what strategic portfolio management is, setting up your board, and then finally, briefly touch on planning. Some things to call out is we are an all Atlassian shop, so I will be talking to you about a solution using Atlassian tools, specifically Jira Premium or Jira Data Center. What I'm showing you today will be Jira Premium, which is in cloud. So most of the customers that we talk to, they have this piece of their team's work set up really well. Most teams are using user stories or tasks or something like that and linked up to an epic. Most customers also separately have a portfolio solution that is usually they're given forward by their product team or their business or their executives, just depends on what kind of setup you have in your environment. The idea when we talk about SPM is connecting these two pieces. Linking this work to these projects will help us understand if we're on track for these projects, how much they actually cost us, and do better planning so we can have better ideas of what our teams can work on and if they're able to finish on time. So here are some questions to ask to get us started. Let's start talking about the types of projects or our projects that we work on in our company. So what are the different types of projects our company works on? Some popular options are R&D, business projects brought forward by our product department, maybe tech debt projects. We want to understand what the different types are so we know that we can prioritize those separately, especially since a lot of companies want to make sure that they bring in maybe 20% tech debt or 10% R&D so they continue to push their product forward and they continue to keep their systems running well. How long is a typical project? What we set up time-wise is going to look different when we scale down with a company that the typical project is 5 years versus a company that the typical project is a month. So one of the important first steps we need to understand is what that looks like for us. What teams are involved with project completion? Most of us understand that a dev team or support teams will be involved, maybe our QA teams if they're separate, but we also need to think about, are marketing teams often involved? Do we have a change management team? Do we often involve HR because of hiring or contractors? If so, we need to make sure we understand that so we can build boards for them so they can see the project work that is assigned to them and contribute to that overall visibility that we're looking for. Where do these projects come from? The easy answer is our product department or business or executives, but oftentimes we also get them from our enterprise architects or maybe our support team when people submit requests for for changes that end up being large enough to be a project. And then lastly, do we have heavy regulatory or security needs? If so, it might make sense to put this as our first column to understand if we should even spend the time to look into it, because maybe we'll get shut down right away since it just doesn't work in our environment. The idea is that we are trying to get to something like this. And this is a board in Jira that shows all of our initiatives laid out These columns are going to be different for every customer, but this view is going to be similar. As you can see, this is what we will call a backlog, which is often different for every customer. Sometimes we actually use a backlog view since there can be so many that are there waiting for our attention. But the rest of this is going to look very different based on your needs for approvals. If you have a different need for approvals from maybe 4 different types of executives or departments, that could be a separate column, or that could just be a separate status, 4 different statuses in one column. There's a lot of options here, but I want to call that out because many people look at this board and say, well, that's not going to work for us. And it really doesn't need to. It's very customizable. So in order to get the right columns for you and your company, let's talk about prioritization, let's talk about process. So the first question we're going to ask is prioritization. What data points does your company need in order to prioritize properly? Some really popular options here are cost, team availability, size of the project, amount of customers that are asking for it. This is a good place to start. But of course, there are a lot of other factors that usually go into how we prioritize. Executive approvals. So as I just said a moment ago, it can be, we've seen several times where we need executive approval maybe from 4 different departments. Maybe you have 1 executive, maybe you have 4, but we definitely need to consider that when we're laying out our board so we can easily see where something is stuck or what we need to do next in order to keep it moving. Assessment of feasibility, tooling, or cost. So along the same lines, oftentimes when we're looking at this board and we're in reviewing, the first thing that we need to do is break it down at a very high level so we can understand real costs associated and the teams that will be involved. Might be different based on your projects, but that's something that we often see. Breakdown of work into features and epics, that's much what we just talked about. Oftentimes, we need to really understand at least a smaller level down of granularity in order to truly understand what tools we can use, what teams are going to be involved, and very high-level guess on the time frame. When projects are 60, 30 days out, 90 days out, again, a lot of this depends on what you're building and what your environment that you're releasing to looks like. But oftentimes, I will add a quick filter up here to indicate when projects are 2 months or 1 month out. And that's a great time, hopefully more 90 days or 60 days, but whatever it looks like, again, in your world, where we talk to change management, release management, customers, marketing, etc. It's an easy filter that we can build just based on the expected due date, and that really gives a lot of visibility into what's coming up for, again, if you have any of these factors that you're considering. And then finally, when the projects are finished, maybe that's another thing that you want to consider is this done column then means that a notice, a task, something is sent to finance because they need to calculate final numbers on costs. Or again, whatever this looks like in your environment. All of this is to build better information for our initiatives or our projects. And forgive all the dates and warnings here. This is a demo environment that I mess with a lot and don't do enough maintenance on. But what we're shooting for is if we have a year-long initiative, then we want to be able to understand what are the expected size and due dates on a more granular level so we know whether we're on track or off track. Back in the waterfall days, we used to work on multi-year timeline with 1,000+ tasks, and it was very hard to understand until it was almost too late whether we were on track or off track. Now, breaking this up in a more granular way and having expected due dates and sequencing, it makes it a lot more clear how we're actually tracking 2 projects and showing that progress. So ultimately, this is what we're hoping to be able to do with our planning. We have these initiatives. This initiative breaks down to these epics. These are high-level estimates, and remember, they're estimates. We will not always be right. In fact, it's rare that we are totally right, but you can usually get within 75%. And this gives us a lot more confidence when we talk to teams about taking on new work and what that will look like for them and timing. So hopefully this has been helpful for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'll get to my contact information here in just a moment. We're Valiantys. We're the #1 Atlassian Platinum Solution Partner globally. If you want some help building out your portfolio, please feel free to reach out. We do this all the time for customers. And again, my name is Jacqueline Lauren. Feel free to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. Thanks. Have a great day.